Hello, I'm MysticSlime, and just now, Toby released the Deltarune Summer Newsletter for 2026, and this time I already saw it, but I wanted to really cover some of the few very juicy bits of this newsletter, because they are very juicy, and they talk about kind of the future of Chapter 6 and 7, along with some really interesting information about the Chapter 7 Weird Route, aka Chapter 7 Side B. So the first thing that I want to touch on here was this kind of major wall of text, which does confirm that Chapter 5 was indeed the last, kind of silly, wacky chapter of Deltarune, and now, with going into Chapter 6 and 7, we are kind of barreling full steam ahead into the very heavy lore parts of Deltarune, the very serious parts of Deltarune. And he goes on to say here that Chapter 6 is going to be a good bit shorter, but that it's also going to hyper-focus on one really major aspect of this game. And at least for me personally, I am wholly and entirely convinced that this is referring to what exactly happened to Des on that day all that time ago, and who or what exactly the knight really is. I just think it makes a lot of sense considering that this is kind of where Chapter 5 ended off with, Asgore talking about what happened to Des that day, and also with Noelle being very, very clearly set up to play a major role even in the Chapter 6 normal route. And then the very last bit of this is Toby saying that Chapter 6 is planned to release by itself in 2027. He does seem very confident about releasing in 2027 as well. And lastly, he addresses some of the concerns over the pacing of the game, where he essentially says, no, trust me guys, when the game is fully out and done and you've played it, you will 100% get why I made the game the way that it is. And then from here on out, there isn't too much. He does talk about how he likes a lot of the speculation and theories. He thinks that how much people are thinking about the game is really cool. He also confirms that Gerona is a phrase that his older sibling actually used, kind of trying to parody a lot of anime titles and stuff. It also confirms that Kiki is indeed his cat that will not shut up. But what I think is really interesting is this last part where he's talking about the new merch for Chapter 5 and also says that he told Fangamer in advance to not expect much merch for Chapter 6 and 7, which is insanely interesting to me and makes me think that from here on out, we're kind of just focusing more on the core, squad, Chris, Susie, Ralsei, Noelle. There isn't gonna be a lot of Darkners at the forefront, seemingly, like Lanino and Elnina have been, for example. And that's kind of it for the newsletter itself, but the very last thing that I want to talk about here is this page, Deltarune.com/Chapter 5, which, we've known for a while has been kind of talking about the significance of the Weird Route in each chapter so far. Now, after this recent newsletter, you can scroll down, and it's a long way down, and you can see 7B. Huge, by the way. This is, way bigger than even Chapter 2. If you look at the 2 compared to 7B, 7B is crazy, bro. It is huge. My idea, honestly, is that 7B is going to be, a basically completely unique chapter, and I think a lot of other people are thinking the same. If you click on 7B, you get this, which is what many people believe to be a progress chapter for Chapter 7B. So I believe that the first row is, it's the map. It seems pretty clear. The second row seems to be just referring to cutscenes, maybe dialogue is included in that as well. And then the last two are a bit more vague. It seems like the last one is referring to enemies, which I'm not sure if bullet patterns are included in that. The third one could be bullet patterns, but I think bullet patterns would probably just be under, the enemies category, so I'm not sure what this third row is supposed to be, this gun, this, toy, water gun thing. It could be mechanics, some people are saying, but we really don't know. And the very last thing we got is that if you highlight this entire page, then at the very bottom you get some text saying, same time as 7. Now, I'm honestly not sure what this is supposed to mean. It's definitely left very cryptic on purpose, but the only thing I can think of is that this is essentially saying that 7B is taking place at the same time that the normal Chapter 7 route would, right? So it's not like we are ending the story prematurely. It's like there's gonna be a bit of a time gap where Chapter 6 would be, and then Chapter 7B would essentially take place at the same time that the normal route would be. If that makes literally any sense at all. But with that, that seems to wrap up all the news that got dropped on us today, at least to my knowledge. I think the biggest thing for me is that Chapter 7 is seeming like a whole movie. Like, this chapter is gonna be insane lore-wise. It's gonna be maybe just 2 chapters, essentially, with Chapter 7B as well. Like, it is going to be insane when it drops. But with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed, and please let me know what you guys think of some of this stuff in the comments, and I'll see you next time.